Hello everyone, my name is Alicia. I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and on this channel I share the things that I've learned in an 8-week inpatient program for DBT, Dialectical Behavior Therapy. And today we'll be talking about the powerful little word, no. I must admit, I find it hard saying no to people. Even when someone asks me for change in the street and I don't want to give it to them, and I know I don't have to, I do say no, but it feels very unpleasant, even though I don't know the person, I don't owe them anything, and I will probably never ever see them again. And it feels so much worse saying no to someone who really matters to me. Once I've done it, I get anxious. I start thinking, what if I ruin the relationship? And my abandonment anxiety kicks in. I often almost immediately regret saying no. I want to apologize, I want to explain myself, make sure the other person is not angry with me. I might even go back on my word and do whatever they want just to alleviate that anxiety. But it has to be done. Saying no is a very important interpersonal skill. Agreeing to do something that you don't want to do can lead to resentment later that will build and provoke needless conflict. If you do it often enough, it may even get in the way of others knowing who you really are. It seems like such a small thing, especially when it comes to a small favor, like driving someone somewhere or going out with a friend when you're really tired. But if you agree to this kind of thing a lot, then you're not being yourself. So in a way, saying yes when you really want to say no is a lie. But it is rarely that black and white. In every situation, there is a lot to take into consideration. So, what factors do we need to consider when deciding whether to say no and how to say no? I will be reading from my DBT book. Number 1 is the right timing. Is now a good time to say no, or should you give your answer later? Number 2 is being prepared. Is the person's request clear to you? Do you know exactly what they're asking? Number 3 is your and the other person's rights. Does the person have some kind of power over you? Are they your teacher or your boss? Is what the person asking of you within their authority? Do you have to give the person what they want? If you say no, are you violating their rights? Number 4 is your relationship with this person. Is what the person is asking of you appropriate to your relationship? Number 5 is reciprocity. Do you owe this person a favor? Do they do a lot for you? Number 6 is consequences. Is declining now more important than the well-being of the relationship? Will you eventually regret saying no or be angry that you did? Will declining ease the situation right now but cause problems later on? Here's an exercise from my DBT book that helps to determine whether you should say no, and if so, how firmly. And I will be using a real-life example. My friend has asked me to give her daughter piano lessons. So let's do the exercise together. It's a list of questions with yes or no answers. Number 1, is the request made by the other person clear and well worded? In this case, yes, it was pretty straightforward. If the answer to this question is no, you need to ask for more information. But if the answer is yes, then you can move on to the next question. Number 2, can you give the person what they want? Well, I suppose I could. I'm not a professional teacher, so I'm not sure what the result would be, but yeah, I could teach her some piano. If the answer to this question is no, then you have to decline. But if the answer is yes, then move on to the next question. Question number 3, can you afford to say no to this request? Yes, I can afford to say no to this request, but it says here, if the answer to this is no because the person has some kind of power over you, then you have to agree, but limit the damage to yourself through negotiation. If you have answered yes to the first 3 questions, then you can move on to the next 6 to decide whether you should say no, and if you should, then how to do it. In my case, I meet the criteria, so moving on to the next questions. Number 4, is it a bad time to say no? Well, it's not like anything in particular is going on. It's not my friend's birthday or anything, so no, it's an okay time to say no. Number 5, would saying no violate the person's rights? No, it wouldn't. Number 6, are you responsible for what they're asking of you? Now this question is quite tricky. I remember lots of people having trouble with it at the hospital because we often feel like we're responsible for giving someone something when we're really not. Like, I mean, if I was the only professional piano teacher in the area and the daughter was clearly a future genius, even then, could you say that I am responsible for giving her a musical education? Anyway, in this case, I'm going to say definitely no. No, I'm not responsible for it. Number 7, is the request of the person appropriate to your relationship? Yeah, I think it's perfectly appropriate. I mean, we're friends. Why wouldn't she ask me that? Number 8, is it in conflict with your long-term goals? While it would take a lot of time, I would have to prepare for the lessons. I would have to learn to be a teacher just to teach this child. It would take a lot of time away from my job, from my hobbies. So yeah, in a way, I do think this is in conflict with my long-term goals. Number 9, what does your intuition say? Well, I really don't want to do this. I think it would have been a lot of stress, a lot of work. I'm really not that good at playing the piano. I really don't want to be teaching anybody to play a musical instrument. So no, I feel like saying no. Now it says here, count how many of these 6 questions you have answered with a no. In my case, it's 4. If you got more than 5 no answers, then firmly refuse and absolutely do not give in under any circumstances. 5 no answers. Firmly refuse, do not give in. 4 no answers. That's my case. Firmly refuse, but look the questions over. 3 no answers. Express unwillingness. 2 no answers. Express unwillingness, but say yes. 1 no answer. Express hesitation, but say yes. 0 no answers. Do what the person wants you to do without them having to ask twice. So I have to say no to this request by my friend, even though that makes me feel anxious and worried. What if she is upset with me when I say no? She wasn't. But it has been very helpful for me to do this exercise when I made the decision. I think it's a very important exercise to do because society doesn't reward us for saying no. And most of us feel uneasy saying it. You know, starting with our parents who were probably absolutely exhausted and couldn't handle the no phase that every toddler has very well. Then there were our peers who called us chicken when we didn't want to take part in their ridiculous plans. People tell us we should be courageous and confident and say yes to jobs, projects, relationships, marriage, having children, whether we're ready for it or not. They say a strong person says yes to everything. But that's just not true. A strong person can say no when they need to. I think real confidence comes from knowing your boundaries and knowing that you can defend them, even when those around you don't appreciate that. It also teaches us to accept that sometimes people who love and value us will still say no to us, and that's okay. Saying no to one thing does not mean total rejection. And I think that this is very hard, but very important for people with BPD to understand and accept. I feel like since I've been learning to stop and think, and then if necessary say no, it has made me feel more secure in my relationship somehow. If I can say no and still love the person and happily do other things for them, then it's probably the same for them. And we can learn so much from this little word, no. When you say no to someone about something small, calmly and politely, but firmly, look at how they react. Do they get enraged? Do they punish you for it? That's something to take note of. Why would they react in this way? Sometimes reassuring such a person that your relationship is still secure and stable makes that anger go away. But if that is not the case, it could be a red flag. Take note of those things. When you think about how you feel after saying no to someone, you also might learn a lot about yourself. Like me, for example, I realize that deep down, I'm afraid that if I say no to someone I love, they will abandon me. Knowing that about myself helps me deal with the real problem here, fear of abandonment. Instead of, saying yes to everything, forcing myself to do things that I don't want to and can't afford to do. Here's a real life example. My boyfriend loves inline skating. I love it too, but sometimes I'm depressed and I really don't want to go. The problem is, at the thought of saying no to that, I used to get so overwhelmed by the fear of abandonment. So I would say yes, even though I felt exhausted. Oh, sorry, that's my neighbors making the noises. Anyway, I would say yes even though I was exhausted. I would still go, And then my mood would get even worse. I wouldn't be able to do any of the tricks properly. I would start feeling like a complete failure and sometimes fall down and hurt myself. The first time I said no to inline skating, I felt awful, but he took it well. He went for a skate alone and everything was fine. So next time saying no was a little bit easier, and the next time even easier. And now I only go when I want to. And somehow I find that now I actually want to go more often than before, because that mix of emotions I used to have about it is gone. Now it's just inline skating, and that makes it so much more fun. Next thing, when someone says no to you about a small thing, there are also lessons to be learned. How does it make you feel? Do you get angry? Do you get upset? If you do, why do you think that is? Do you also have fear of abandonment kicking in? Would it help if you could tell yourself, this is just a small thing. It's not the basis for my whole relationship with this person. They still love me and want to be there for me. It's also important to notice how people say no. Are they calm? If they're calm, it helps. But they could seem a bit harsh sometimes because they are afraid of saying no too. Then maybe you could reassure them, because you know so much about yourself, because you do exercises like this one. You can help others too. But if the person seems like they love saying no to you at every turn, if they gloat about it, that could be a serious red flag. A power move, or punishing you for something you did or said, or just plain hating to do anything for others. Those are pretty bad things, and you should take note of them. Exactly because we're living in a yes culture, we can learn a lot about ourselves and about others from no. Soon I'll also talk about how to ask for something and show you a DBT exercise for that. But for today, this is it. I really hope it helps. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you, or rather at you, again soon. Bye!